Hi there. We are going to continue reading Habibi by Naomi Shihab. We're going to start on page 218 with the chapter called Banana Easter. This is going to be a short reading today. So let's start off with the quote that the author gives us. Who can guess what the weather will bring? Well, now that's a question we ask in Colorado all the time. Jerusalem woke to a blizzard for the first time in 50 years on Easter Sunday. Poppy stood by the front window exclaiming, "This is just not something you expect to see here." The road out front looked strangely deserted except for a few kids in raggedy jackets and two disoriented goats. Rafik ran downstairs in his pajamas, opening his mouth to the sky. He said the snow tasted like icing without vanilla in it. Mrs. Abowd had tried to bake hot cross buns, as she did every Easter, but they didn't rise. "Let's call them hot cross pancakes," she said. It was the first year nobody was interested in hiding any eggs. The whole family drove slowly through swirling snow to the garden tomb where Leanna's mother wanted to attend the sunrise service. She got ideas into her head and would not let go of them, no matter what the weather. How could she miss her first Easter service here in the place where everything had really happened? Arab families stood outside in their transformed yard, staring happily up into the magical air. Did they even know how to make snowballs? Recently, Leanna's mother had narrated a program at the radio station called Debate Over the Tombs. Some people believed the tomb of Jesus was at a different location. Mom voted for the one on the cliff above the bus station, a cave in the craggy rock where a small group of devout and frozen people were already waiting, shivering in skinny coats and scarves, hats and gloves. The sun did not rise, or if it rose, no one could tell. There was snow on the crooked branches of the olive tree. People crowded close among snow-capped stones, while a priest with chattering teeth held his Bible and tried to speak. He said Easter gave human beings their highest hopes. It was the greatest feast of the year, the victory match of the human soul. Poppy leaned over to whisper in Leanna's ear, "Jerusalem needs lower hopes, too, down to the ground, pebble-sized, poppy seed-sized hopes." She closed her eyes, trying to feel what it meant to be assured that dying did not mean dead. Many in the crowd were weeping. Maybe they had dreamed of being here for years. Maybe they had traveled from Spain and California, and their tears would freeze on their cheeks. Near the end of the service, a tall, thin-faced lady toppled over backward into the snow and struck Leanna with her elbow on the way down. Rafik blurted, "Whoa!" Poppy rushed to the lady's side. He carried smelling salts in his pockets for such occasions. He carried aspirins and nitroglycerin tablets, and who knew what else. He leaned over and spoke to the fallen lady gently. She didn't seem very hurt. She kept arranging her hair. Poppy took her pulse and whispered to her while someone called a taxi to drive her back to her hotel. She said she didn't need to go to a hospital, that she had fainted every time she got emotional. She had disrupted the final prayer as a few Americans started singing "How Great Thou Art" to fill in the space. Leanna's eyes traveled curiously around the group. She felt startled to see her secretly famous banana seller standing off to the right, wearing a bulky blue sweater much too large for him. He'd been hidden behind someone till people began moving around. His hands were poked up high in either sleeve. Leanna had never seen him without his cart before. She poked Rafik and whispered, "Look who's here." Poppy helped the weak-kneed lady into the car, then turned to Leanna as it disappeared. He was grinning. You know what? She thought this snow was a miracle. It swept her away. Behind Poppy, the dwarf broke into the first smile Leanna had ever seen on his face, and he said in Arabic, Mabruk, congratulations. Leanna reached toward him to shake his hand. Fimuz? She asked, which meant something like, do you have banana? Or maybe it meant, is there a banana? Which sounded a little foolish if you considered it. Miraculously, miraculous as snow on Easter and strangers passing out on the ground, the small, smiling man pulled a stubby banana from his pants pocket and handed it to her. She tried to press a coin from her wallet into his hand, but he waved it away, laughing heartily, saying Arabic words she didn't understand. Poppy looked startled by this odd transaction. What's going on? He asked. Leanna dangled her prized banana in front of his nose, a yellow banana in white snow. Rafiq said, it's an Easter egg. And then another chapter titled A Day Could Unfold. And the author's quote is, teach me to sow a vine of stars. One day at lunchtime, after buying a slightly tattered 2-month-old American Woman's Magazine at the newsstand as a surprise for her mother, Leanna heard her name floating above the idling taxis near the King David Hotel. She raised her head to the sky as if a bird had called her. Then Omer appeared, sprinting up to her startled side and said, you didn't tell me your name means a vine. I found it spelled almost the same way in the dictionary, a tropical rainforest vine. It roots in the ground. And Leanna laughed. Where have you been? Where have you been? He said. I was going to call you last night. It seemed like a thin little lie anybody might say, but she liked it. Omer wanted to invite her to a poetry reading by local poets at his school that evening. She said she'd have to see if one of her parents could drive her since it was at night. He drew a map to his school on the back of her grocery list written in Hebrew from his pocket. Do you still have my number? He asked. Leanna thought, oh, please. Well, he grinned. You did not use it recently, so I could not be sure. He held her elbow for a moment before she ran off toward the Armenian Quarter in her Arabic class, which was already 2 minutes into its lesson on how to ask questions. Again, as it had before, when Leanna saw Omer at lunchtime, the afternoon puffed up lightly, joyously, a delicate pastry, a sweetened shell of ours. On the local bus home, everything still shone in the light of Omer's smile. The cracked bus seats, squealing brakes, ladies with huge plastic bags of fresh bread. The bus driver's bald head were shining. Shukran, Leanna exclaimed to the driver, climbing down at her stop. Thank you. She was not usually so enthusiastic. The driver lifted his hands from the wheel and shimmied them in the air, laughing at her. Alhamdulillah Allah. Praise be to God that a day could unfold with surprise invitations. Leanna leapt upstairs 2 steps at a time. But she was met by her brother with a stunned look on his face. Khalid's been shot, he said, and Poppy's in jail. What? Wow, that's a surprise. Wonder what happened.